Dude, before we get into the bass amps and all of those shenanigans we're going to be talking about, tell me about this bass because it looks outrageous.
It's so cool. This is a Serek Grand. He does these in small batches. I got this one from the most recent batch. It's pink. I love it. And it's so simple. TV Jones pickup, volume knob, short scale, but the switch, dude. Okay, straight up, like tone on. I think they use 250 K pots too, so it's sort of like a dark vintage sound.
Yeah.
You can go tone off.
Just switch it right off though with that.
Switches.
Oh,
So it's like, going from having a tone knob full up to full off, just flip of a switch.
Wow.
But if you flip it forward, it has like a built-in fuzz capacitor.
He's doing some great stuff. He's
How
doing,
cool is that?
Shout out to Jake at Serek. Beautiful basses. Yeah.
And they just went through a really hard time. I mean, they're still recovering from it. Hurricane Helene that rolled through, he just moved his shop from Chicago to Georgia, and they just went through it. Maybe North Carolina. I feel like I'm misspeaking.
Somewhere
I believe outside of
there's
Asheville.
some big ass hurricanes.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to give Jake some love. He was just about ready to start building orders after the big move. He has this incredible bass barn, and trees just came through it, just through the barn, ruined all of his stuff. And so anyway, just want to wish Jake a speedy recovery. Yeah. He posted a lot about it on Instagram, and it was not, like, oh, help me out. He was just like, hey, look at this crazy stuff that happened.
Look at this crazy stuff, yeah. Hey,
and,
if any trees came like smashing through that barn, Jake, you keep them, and make some basses out of them.
Yes, I think the barn burner, the barn destroyer. I don't know what it is, but he needs to do it.
Yeah. The hurricane
bass.
Yeah. Outrageous,
yeah, for sure.
Anyway, dude, so today we're talking about our top amp and cab picks of 2024. Yeah,
that's right.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me?
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, you go first. What we thought we're like loosely organized today. We've both got our own lists, but here's the deal: we don't know what's on each other's list. It was like a separate thing. We said to each other, "Hey, let's make this. It'd be a cool pod to make, cool video. Just make a list of everything that you found interesting in 2024." And I did the same. And goddamn, I knew that you were going to do something like this. I knew that is on my list.
It is. Well, hey, great minds think alike, Scott, and so do ours.
No, and everybody just in the comments, let me know. Who do you think is going to have the biggest list here? Me or Ian? Everybody knows you're going to have the biggest list.
I feel like you can see mine on the top tab. Maybe we'll have to. Maybe in the edit we can crop out the top tab.
We'll zoom in
so that it's So hey, Barefaced in the UK. Alex at Barefaced and the team making some of the coolest, most considered stuff ever. So you have a Barefaced cab, and maybe I'm encroaching on your list territory here.
Two. I've got one. I've got a tiny ditty one here. You can see that one. And then I've got this over here, which is it called the Big Twin 3?
That's the Big
Twin.
Twin
Can
3.
you bring that up on screen, actually? Can you just, because you're on the website now, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, I can navigate a website. Are you kidding me?
Come on, dude. That's,
here
we go. Yeah, it's that one there.
There's the Big Twin.
Yeah, so this is the one that I've got. That cab is a monster. This is one of my, if I was, to pick one cab of 2024 that's blown my mind, this would be it. Barefaced, Big Twin 3. It's just outrageous. Shout out to Alex. And the cab that Ian just had up before, so if you just want to go over to that one as well, Ian, that is like a newer version of what I've got here with a slight twist. So, go and take it.
I've got to say, right, so I've played the one that you have in there at the studio, the Big Twin 3. I'll just go back to that. And if you see the Big Twin 3, it's made with these big vertical vents on the side. And it's an amazing design. What goes into these and how they're vented and how they're cooled, how they're built. It's just incredible. Like crazy science going on here.
Yeah.
But from a visual perspective, the side vent, when I put a head on top of this thing, I don't know where to line it up. And it drives my OCD crazy. And even if you put a grill on it, dude, it's still, I'm like, man. And so I was like, Alex, is there any chance that you would do like a resto mod, essentially making something old school, right? Looking in aesthetic, but under the hood, it's full of all the goodness. So look at what he did. They put it in their 610 box, or essentially something similar to their 610, and they recessed the vents. So it's still vented on the side, but those, you don't see them, right?
Yeah.
Still got the tilt back and the wheels and all that, but then you put that grill over the top. Oh,
looks beautiful, doesn't it? Yeah. All you need is a Noble just to pop on the top there, mate. You just need a Noble head. I wonder who's got one of those. Huh? The interesting thing here is though that I watched a video of Alex. Do you know what I think of Alex? I think as he gets older, he's going to become more and more like Doc from Back to the Future. Like he's just going to, like when I hear him speak, like he's very much like that way, kind of like very technical, But so Alex, if you're listening, man, you just need to sort of like grow that hair out. Just let it go gray. Oh, you'll be making my dreams come true. Anyway. But you'll be the bass version, the cab version of it. But those two cabs that Ian just showed, they're identical in sound. They don't sound any different. So I was watching because they're exactly the same space, even though one's slightly wider and the other one's, slightly deeper, if that makes sense. So it's exact in terms of the square inchage inside the actual cab, it's exactly the same actually. Alex just released a video on it and I thought that was pretty wild.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I got to show you check this out. Let me just show you the inside of this cab because it's wild. So if I pull this back up here, check this out.
Yeah.
So can you see this? The inside of this cab looks like it's insanity. I said on my Instagram, it looks like a dinosaur puzzle that you would buy like your nephew at the science museum.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
like one of those sort of like articulating, puzzles. Look at that thing. And check this out too, with my rig. Oh, come on.
Oh,
I'm going to get it together.
Have you got the picture of the Noble?
I'm going to get it together. Yeah. See, check this out. Right. So there it is with the Noble on top. I mean,
that's beautiful. Looks beautiful. Look at the pinstripe. Look at the white pinstripe.
I know.
It's pretty sexy.
The white pinstripe. Yeah, it's absolutely lovely. Not inexpensive, but you know the old saying, Divine?
Listen.
You know the old saying? You get what you pay for. You know what I mean?
Listen, dudes, this list ain't going to be cheap. It might be bougie, but this is just our top picks. I'm not saying we bought all of this stuff. I'm just saying, that I want to buy. And I know I've actually got the cab back there, but there's a lot of stuff on this list that I haven't got, and I would love. So it's not cheap, but we will get on to. We thought it'd be cool to share some ideas for more budget things as well that we'll get to at the end of the video.
Yeah, stay tuned because we will share some budget considerations at the end. Connor, just give me this one again. Connor and Alan behind the scenes today, rocking it at SBL. Show this to Scott too. Check this out. I mean, you gotta put, what I mean? You gotta get that lull bass in there, a little coily cable. There's something about this vibe where it screams. It's vintage aesthetic, but it's not fully. It isn't vintage, but I really love the simple vintage aesthetic. I think
it's a vibe, man. But if anybody's wondering, that's a Noble head, and they're not available. You can't get them. Jack over at Noble only made a few of them, and you know more about it than me, Ian. It sounded like they were just a colossal pain in the ass. Noble are really, really well known for the DIs that they make. They make incredible DIs. He made a few of these heads. Ian snapped one up, and I don't think he makes them anymore. And they're not tube, are they? It's not
I mean, it's his tube preamp, you know, in the DI, but then it's a solid state power amp. It was an idea that he and I had together, actually. Back in 2015, I was on the road a lot and I was traveling with an SVT, and I thought it'd be cool to have something that was big and, you know, made a statement as a head, but didn't weigh 87,000 pounds.
How heavy is it?
I think they're around 20 to 25 pounds.
Because I've got a head that's similar on my list.
Oh, I can't wait to see it.
I'll get to that, but I'm not going to get to it yet because I want to do my top combo pick. It's not really a combo, but it's kind of a combo, right? My top combo pick for 2024 isn't so much of a new model. It's more the opposite. It is an Ampeg B15, and I've got a beautiful one up here. I think this is mine. Shout out to Andy Baxter, who's based here in Leeds and sells some incredible basses and cabs and amps. I bought mine from Andy, and I just think they're beautiful. I was joking with Ian yesterday. I don't smoke cigars, but if I did, this is kind of like, I think that playing a P bass through an Ampeg B15 is my version of that, right? It's my version of sitting there with a wine and a cigar and just enjoying life, reflecting on, on the week or whatever you do when you're smoking a cigar. I don't know what you do when you smoke cigars, but it looks cool. Looks like they're having a vibe, a good time.
Yeah.
And I plugged in my Ampeg B15 the other day, and it was just beautiful. And here's a hot tip as well. Hot tip for anybody that's trying to sneak a Ampeg B15 or sneak an amp into the household, right? You might have it hidden away in a bedroom, in a basement, and your spouse is like, you try and take it in the main living area, and your spouse is like, oh yeah, Ian's pointing at his B15 as well. Your spouse is like, what are you doing with your gear get it out? Okay, so if that is you, if your spouse might be, I don't know, into some like vintage kind of furniture, maybe they've got the Echo, old sort of like 1950s, 1960s, mid-century furniture. There is nothing better than an Ampeg B15 sat next to one of those beautiful mid-century tables. And it is a great way to get an amp into the main living area of your house and have your spouse happy with you, because it just sits there. It looks old. It looks vintage. You plug it in. It glows. It can almost serve as a small lamp.
Yes, the lit piece of plexi in the middle, right in the tubes that glow. I'm also going to say too that this, even if you don't like mid-century furniture, if you just got whatever, I mean, like let's say you just got whatever furniture, or you got some IKEA stuff, man, a B15 is going to class up the living room no matter what.
It is.
No matter what.
I've got it in my living room. Let me say too, hey.
Yeah,
go on, carry on.
If you are thinking about a B15, so Scott has the sort of holy grail mid-60s B15. Do you know what year yours is? Is it like a 66?
I think mine's it's either 65 or 66, and it's freaking awesome. And they're not, I don't know about the States, but they're not crazy expensive in the UK. I think
really?
I got mine for feel like $2,500 maybe I got mine for.
Yeah. I mean, for some people that's really expensive.
But like 1965, dude. Okay, how much is a Fender P bass from 1965?
You're right. That's a lot.
That's like
12, 6.
It's going up towards 10 and maybe above, right? So that's how I think about it. I'm like a mid-60s P bass is going to be extortionate, like $10,000 or more. Whereas like this, $2,500, and your spouse digs it. They ain't going to dig the bass.
Here, check this out. The budget option for a B15 is a 70s B15. Yeah. And the 70s, it's maybe not quite as sexy as the 60s B15, but it's a bigger cabinet, and I feel like the wattage is a little bit increased as well. So it's actually, I sat down at a shop, and I bought this ages ago, probably 10 years ago. This was $600 when I bought it, and it roasted the 60s one that it was sat next to. Now,
really?
Now, look, I'm not saying that it would roast yours, Divine. I'm just saying.
But in that scenario, it roasted it.
Yeah. It sounded so good to me. And I was like, oh man, this, I preferred it. I went in wanting to buy the 60s one and ended up buying the 70s one because I liked the way it sounded better. And they're far cheaper. So something to consider.
Disclaimer, because you might be thinking, well, this sounds great. I'm going to get myself an Ampeg B15. I'm going to take it down to my pub gig. I'm going to do it. No. Right?
Oh, right.
They're actually pretty useless as live amps. And that is why I don't think that Ampeg make them anymore, because, bass players want bass amps that they can use on gigs, and Ampeg B15 isn't that. It's predominantly used in studios. And interesting, I was just talking to Lisa, my wife, about it the other day. I was like, the Ampeg B15, I was like, it's like being used like extensively is an understatement. Like all of the classic records, even the ones that are being made this year, 2024, masses of those, like even with huge modern artists, right? The bass, if it's got live bass on it, they will probably have laid it down with a B15. Even
absolutely.
It's in all of the big studios. They sound incredible. Like I was in Sunset Sound in LA, did some stuff out there. It was just in another little room to the side. We played. It was great. The stuff that I did with Ariel Posen when he was over, I used an Ampeg B15 for that. The stuff that I did with Josh Smith and Gary Novak, I used a B15 for that in the studio. Like they're great amps, and they pair really nicely with the P-Bass. It doesn't need to be a P-Bass, but goddamn, it sounds good.
Yeah, it's so nice. There was a time for me too where I was rolling this thing. This is a heavy. I mean, these are brutal. So they call them a flip top because literally the top comes off. You turn it over and it drops into the cabinet, and then the tubes aren't exposed.
Have yours got little wheels as well? Can you wheel it around?
I've got the little casters. Yeah. And I was bringing it in and doing sessions with it, and then I just got old and lazy and didn't want to like haul an 80-pound combo up the stairs to the studio anymore. But yes, if you endeavor to do kind of old school sounds, retro sounds on records, it's a must. Also, if you just want a lovely sound in your room, playing, practicing, it's fantastic. And if you're like Scott, needs to sneak that amp in with a spouse that loves mid-century modern, let's go all day long.
Love me a good bit of mid-century modern. Hey, talking about valve amps, and also, we showed the Noble earlier. So the Noble isn't available. Jack's not making them, but this incredible company that's come into my peripheral vision recently called Jad Freer. I actually first found out about them through you, Ian. I think that you had the Capo, right? Which is the...
Yeah, I'll grab it.
Have you got it? Yeah. So the Capo is, it's like a DI pedal, but it's also got a preamp in there. Ian uses it. Tim LaFave uses it. Rob Malarkey's using it. There's a bunch of bass players using that pedal. Really, really popular. I think actually that Tim LaFave is... in fact, I'm just going to... Let me see if I've got it here. Yeah, check it out.
Signature version of it.
Yeah, there's a signature Tim LaFave model here. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure why it's different.
I can tell you what it does.
Oh, so yeah, why is it different? The
straight up Capo, you have A side, B side, so you can set up two sides for different sort of gain structures, amount of grit, different sounds. But what Tim wanted is he wanted to switch to when he was using just dry or like bass guitar sounds. He wanted it to go through all the gain circuitry, EQ, but when he stepped on like octave pedals, he wanted it to go clean. So for him, the other switches it over to just the clean DI, because there's actually two outputs on this. And so the switch gives you the clean DI, and he likes that better when he's using like big bomb sounding synths. Either version is very cool. I prefer personally just the standard version. When I send effects through it, I like the way the effects sound through the gain structure I have set up. That said, I don't use it to blast. But it's a very ampy sounding DI if you want it to be. You can kind of dial in, think of it as like this is a bit of a reduction, but think of it as like a boutique, really excellent Sans amp. Like it's giving you, it's better than a Sans amp to me. It gives you more flexibility and tonal options. And I just think like the preamp in it is so lovely, but that's kind of how I would see it in the market, as like a better, more flexible, DI that has grind characteristic in it, if you want that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, that's the pedal that brought the attention of the company to me. And then recently I saw that they've created this amp here, which is an all tube amp. Okay. So it's an all tube amp. So, and I mean, like, it's not exactly the same as the Noble. I think the Noble's got a tube preamp section and a non-tube power amp section, where I think this is all tube. You'll see it says all tube bass amp, but I think that, like, aesthetically it's coming out of the same space. I love that it's got just gain, bass, treble, and master. It's got no middle.
So cool.
That's definitely a hat tip to the B15. I think that this was originally thought of with maybe Kevin Scott, who's an incredible bassist. Plays with Fork. Do you know Fork? Yeah.
And Government Mule now.
Yeah, and Gov Mule, yeah. And they just look incredible. I haven't tried one, but I wanted it to be on my list because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh God, that looks so cool. Good. And Mitch over at Alinto, I've spotted that he's got one. Shout out to Mitch at Alinto and Labella String. Of course he's got one.
Of course he's got one.
Out there. He's like... He's on the front line.
He is of the coolest gear. Yeah, Mitch is on the front line.
We're in the trench. We're just sort of like, are we going? Where's Mitch? He's out. He's over. He's gone. He's in enemy territory, just like tearing it up with his valve amp. God damn, Mitch. Anyway, so these look beautiful, and they've also got the James stack as well, which is the EQ works slightly differently to a normal EQ section, where you know it's. I'll do a layman's job of it. You alter the bass, it's going to alter other things as well as just the bass. So it's a rabbit hole that we're not going to go down. But all that to say, this looks really beautiful. I think to get them, you need to. I think you're like a lot of the stuff on this list, it's expensive. I think it's $1,000 deposit, and then I'm not exactly sure. Well, let's find out now how much it is.
Hit that pre-order, dude. Let's see.
Oh, and then it's like $4,000, which is obviously a lot of cheese.
It's a lot of cheese.
It's a lot of cheese, but it's a beautiful looking amp. Anyway.
It's beautiful. Yeah, and I believe 200 all-tube watts, which I think is actually enough to gig. It's enough to,
it's as loud
it's not quite
as Goliath. I think it's as loud as Godzilla.
That's what it says?
I was reading a post that Mitch Friedman from Alinto, from Labella, put on Instagram, and he was like, this thing is like as loud as an angry bear. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So it's something very cool looking.
Pull up Jad Freer one more time. I want to just shout out the design aesthetic of the cabinets.
Dude, I'm on. Check this out.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
It's on my list, dude.
Gorgeous. Oh, it is? Well, it was on my list too. 2 birds, dude. 1 stone. They also make smaller amps as well. And I've had the opportunity to play, I believe it was their small 210 and their Seisma amp when I was out at Alinto. So I've played through this rig, and it was surprisingly sweet. Like, I plug into amps a lot, and I'm like, oh yeah, bass amps are kind of bass amps. Sometimes I feel that way, like, oh yeah, yep, sounds like it should. Sounds like a bass amp. But this was really, really nice.
I'll bring that up. Let me just navigate to this. It's the amplifiers.
Ooh, I love hearing that hard R at the end of your amplifiers.
Amplifiers. Okay, yeah, it's these, isn't it? Yeah, it's this Seisma. Yeah. Yep. So it's kind of like,
that is a tube pre. It's supposed to be sort of their like more high powered version of a B15, actually.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh yeah, tube preamp based on the iconic B15 sound.
There you go, baby. Come on, I'm not going to lead you astray, right?
Oh, it looks nice inside. That's beautiful.
Sure does. Yeah.
Got some little lugs if you need them. Oh, I'm going to check that out. And that's more accessible than $4,000, like the big tube one. That big tube one's £30, I think. So it's
manageable.
It's manageable, but it's pretty heavy. Where I think this is going to be pretty light, isn't it? Yeah, this is like 8.5 pounds.
Yeah. So stick it in a bag, take it to the gig.
When you're looking for I'm all about the tube sound personally. I much prefer that. What about you? Like when you're looking for an amp. Are you into the tube sound? Are you bothered at all? What do you feel
sound
about it?
is such a tube sound means so many different things to different people. For the longest time, I thought that I wanted an all tube amp. Mm-hmm. And I had a Sadowski, a really esoteric, fancy Sadowski SA200, but it was finicky. I blew some tubes in it, and I have trauma around all tube amps. I had an SVT out on the road too that gave me trouble. I have trauma because when I'm playing live,
we talked about this yesterday, didn't we? Yeah.
The bass just needs to work. Above anything else, the bass needs to work. Stops working, that's a bummer. So I've had some tubes just flame out, and then there's no bass.
Yeah.
So to me, the reliability thing is an issue. Also, I think for me, in certain bands, I'm playing big synth sounds or something that requires a lot of wattage to produce clean low end. And what I've discovered is all tube amps, even 200 watt, even to 300 watt SVT styles, you start to hear them break up with like when you're playing an octave pedal.
Got it.
And I don't love that. I think if I were playing in just like a rock band with a pick or like a blues band where I'm playing fingers, flats, P bass, sure. But the stuff that I'm doing, man, I have started to sort of like steer myself back to solid state power sections. I don't mind a tube preamp. I think that's fine. Yeah. But I'm not. There's something about the sag and the saturation of an all-tube power section that I find for my playing doesn't always suit me. And that's, and for the longest time I was like, oh no, all-tube is cool. It's better. It's not, it is cool, but it isn't better. It's just different.
Yeah, like Phil Conrad, shout out to Philip Conrad. He did a great video.
Oh, yes.
And he's awesome, isn't he?
I love Phil. Yeah.
He did a great video and he was talking about the difference between like solid state and tube, right? Like what, and you've got tube preamp, you've also got tube power amp. When you pair them together, that's like more tube than just a tube preamp. So let me just say the shades of different colors here, but a great way to think about this, I think it was the difference. Do you call it asphalt? Is that how you put it? What is that like?
That's a word that we say. Yes,
it's like I think is that tarmac?
Blacktop.
Is it like
tarmac? Okay, so check it out. Tarmac we only use in terms of like an airplane, like an airplane runway. We call that the tarmac.
Yeah.
But outside of an airport, we don't use that word. But yes, asphalt.
I think
road.
Road basically. So it's like imagine running on a road, and then imagine running on like sand. I think, and for me, when he was describing it, I was like, it wasn't sort of like soft flake, and maybe it's because all the beaches I've been on are in England. They're all a bit wet, right? It's not like fine.
Bit soggy.
I was like, it's a bit soggy. For me, that's a great kind of like visualization of what it's like to play a tube amp, especially like all tube amp. It feels like just a little slower, and I used to love. Actually, I used to hate that. That was like the death. That was the death of me. If I used to turn to a gig and it was like slow response, I wanted it to be like super sharp and super like,
that's right.
No, and like really feel like I was running down a road. And I've actually gone the other way and I actually much prefer that kind of like softer feel of a tube amp. I haven't gone down the sort of like I can't tell you whether it's like, when it's all tube power amp, it's too tubey for me. So I'm more into like tube preamps. I'm not sure, but when I play the B15, I'm just like, this feels great. And that feels like sand to me.
Yeah, and it is because that's an all tube power amp section too. It's low wattage, so you're sort of getting saturation early, like it's sagging early in the process. You don't have to crank it to get that sort of sandy beach feeling. And and for the record, I want you to keep calling it tarmac, but I will say this: every time I
didn't know if you knew what it was. That's what I was like, what do you guys call it? Asphalt,
dude. Every time you've used it, I'm thinking like you're running down the tarmac. tarmac. I'm like, God, is there a jet airplane behind you? like ready to take you out? Like, you're on the tarmac. I'm like, Jesus, when would you ever be on the tarmac?
I'm looking
outside
left
of
and
being
right.
in an airplane? Yeah, it's great.
Hey, dude, talking about big amps, let me show you another big amp. Sorry, I'm just stealing it all because I know that your list is big. Look at that bad boy.
Come on, let me see.
Look at this.
Dude, this was on my list too. Of course.
Bullhead 3K. Now,
I
love the guys at Trickfish. Shout out to Ryan and the guys. They make some incredible amps. My main gigging amp at the minute is a Trickfish 1K head, which is incredible. But I saw this and I was like, oh, but what's better than 1K? 3K! It's bigger, you know. But there's some cool stuff in here as well. They've got like this high pass and low pass filter, which I think is really interesting. Especially if you're playing in different rooms, giving you the ability to get rid of it. If you've got like a massive low rumble, you can like cut that out, you know.
Yeah, you can tame the subs.
It was just a real. I saw it, I dug it, I wanted to bring it up today.
Well, this stole the show at last year's NAMM. At NAMM 2024, which is, you know, that always throws me because it's like, isn't that this year? No, this upcoming one is 2025 because January, right? But they had this, I don't know if it was fully finalized, but they had this head and through a big cabinet of theirs too. And it just was killer. So many people were hanging at the Trickfish booth. I got to play through this and do a little demo, play along to some tunes. And we actually ran my phone and my lull bass through this rig. So I was having playback through and playing the bass, and it's awesome. I think it's beautifully designed.
Looks nice,
I think too, if you scroll into those specs, is this potentially capable of 5,000 watts? I think it might be.
Do I have to click on this? Let me have a look.
I mean, you might have to.
What, for 2 ohms or something?
I think it goes, it looks nice in that rack.
It does look nice, doesn't it? Yeah.
If I could be mistaken, I could be spreading lies, but I believe you can get
2 independent power modules that are 1,700 watts each.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we're just hanging out in the...
Yeah. So it's more than 3K.
Yeah, it's more than 3,000.
Yeah.
You know, and I guess some people will be like, whoa, you guys are talking about, 30 watt combo B15 all tube, and now a 3,000. We're gonna tack 2 zeros onto that number too.
Damn right we are.
We're not gonna explain to you how tube watts are different than solid state watts because here's the deal: nobody knows. Nobody knows. Somebody knows.
True. Somebody knows. It ain't us.
But the reason you would want something like that rig, I think you can you use those channels independently as well, Scott?
That's what I was looking for. I'm not sure.
Can you plug one thing into one of the power amps and something else into another?
I think you can. I think, let me just go back. I think that you can. I think it's got like a 1 and a 2. Yeah, check it out. 2. Maybe this is something like to do with controlling the different channels.
Oh, yeah. I wonder too. I feel like there was this thing sold of this, or it was something that they made around, you could plug, if you're playing key bass and bass on a gig.
Yeah.
Like you can plug into the same amp, and
that
have it
sounds
feed
familiar,
out the same
actually,
cab.
yeah.
And it's pretty cool. But the reason you would want that kind of horsepower in a power amp, I think, is just for big, big, clean headroom. It's not so much to me about volume. Like you're never going to turn that thing up and just blast everybody off the stage, although you could. You could do that.
If anybody's misbehaving, just destroy them with bass.
With great power, great responsibility, right? But the thing that will give you, that kind of wattage, is like if you send it a huge signal on the low end, like if you're playing big synths, big octave pedal stuff, and you just need a bunch of clean headroom in low end, that's where having that kind of power will really be beneficial.
Yeah. It looks killer, doesn't it? And just to say as well, I really like the preamp section of this. I really like the EQ. It's just really, really usable. Love them. It's actually, I think the preamp was designed by Mike Pope, who is an incredible bass player. and but also is a nerdy electronic type as well. And he designed this amp, and at least the EQ section. He also does his own preamps as well, and he designed the preamps that are used in Fender basses as well. So if you are
I love it.
an owner of a Fender bass, or you've played a Fender bass, that preamp in there will be a Mike Pope preamp.
Okay, so I love YouTube. You probably love YouTube, but let's be honest. It's not the best platform for in-depth teaching. Enter the SBL Academy. At SBL, we break down the bass with a curriculum-driven approach that spans from complete beginner level to super advanced. We also cover all kinds of genres, skills, and techniques, all brought to you by world-class bass instructors. And best of all, you can get started today for free at trysbl.com.
What else is on your list, dude?
I got one. Let me see if I can do it here. Let me pull it up here. Check this out. So this is a company that I feel like we've known about and loved for a long time. But this
Aguilar
is the new Aguilar stuff. And I've got to say, I was in New York not too long ago when they just brought out the new Tonehammer stuff. So Aguilar makes this Tonehammer series and also an AG series, and then of course the huge and incredible trouser flapper DB71, 751 rather, sorry. That's a monster rig down here. But they redid the aesthetic of the Tonehammers and the AGs. So now there's a Tonehammer 500 and I believe a 700, and also similarly an AG 5 and 7. The big difference is the Tonehammer preamp can get grittier, sound more ampy, whereas the AG is designed to be super clean, not really break up at all. And I did a podcast with them when I was there, and we played through all this stuff. The biggest difference of the new models, other than aesthetic, is they have these cab IRs that are built into the back. So it's pretty cool. They have two DIs now. So the front DI that Aguilar has always had is just a clean DI, comes, and you can pre-post it and ground lift it, similar to any DI on any amp you've ever used. Do I love that it comes off the front of the cab? Do I love that about Aguilar? I do not. I think that is a design faux pas. I'm just going to say it, and feel free to roast me in the comments. I don't care. I feel like I hate having that cable come out the front of the amp, but that's neither here nor there. It's fine. I was like, guys, can we flip that around? And I was asking him, I'm like, could you put the DI on the back? They're like, well, yes and no. And
is that their thing? Their thing is DI.
Yeah, that's their thing. Okay, yeah, they've always had that.
I understand why as well. So I totally understand why, because he's a freaking pain. How many times have you been fricking around with the XLR?
In the back.
You're trying to get the XLR and you can't find it. You need to lean over. What? Why not put it on the front? I'm with Aguilar, dude.
Really?
I'm with Aguilar.
That's amazing. I just don't like somebody front of house plugs it in and there's like a Velcro cable tie hanging, and it's like hanging.
They don't do it properly. They don't tuck it around neatly. They just leave it like a freaking elephant trunk hanging like a.
But that isn't Aguilar's issue. You're right. That's not Aguilar's fault that they don't. That the front of house doesn't tuck it neatly. But I was like, please put that thing in the back, clean up that front panel. And they were like, well, yes and no. What we're going to do is we're going to give you a DI around back, but the back DI is going to have cab IRs. So let me see if I can actually pull up a photo of this. So if you take a look at the 500, right? So there's the front. Okay, we know that. But if we take a look at the back, check it out. So the back now has a DI as well, and it has these cab IRs that you can load in. Of course, there's USB-C, so you can load in your own cab IRs, or you can go to their website and download others. But what's so sick about this, truly sick about this, is with this rig, you don't have to mic the cab, or you wouldn't have to. You know how sometimes live, there's an engineer that wants to take a DI and mic the cab?
Hell yeah.
And they think maybe that's going to deliver some incredible bass tone experience. I'm not sure that it does, but the idea here is you can take both. You can have a clean DI, and then you can have sort of the mic'd cab sound.
Oh, so you
DI.
actually give them. Oh, that's cool.
Yes. And then, this is so rad. Then there's no frickin' phase issue between the two, which is a night. Anybody that's recorded bass in the studio, give me a shout. Phase between your DI and your mic'd cab is always a drag. You're always moving waveforms. Not with this. Also, you don't step back playing your root down bass line and kick the frickin' mic over live like I do always.
That's interesting. I guess the only sort of like the thing that it would just be to be cognizant of would be to like for the engineers. Do you know, like we've worked with some engineers, you know, they've got their thing. You're right, and you're turning up with your freaking bass out with your 2D.
Oh no, fancy.
Oh wait a minute, wait there, engineer. This isn't a regular bass. This is a tone hammer, and I've got 2D eyes. He's like, oh god, go one of these douches again. I mean, you know, maybe there's sort of like an adoption curve to go through or something like that, but I freaking love the idea. It's
a cool idea.
And I will say that the tone hammer, do you think it's the most used bass head? I mean, see it's up there. So many. There's so many people. It's everywhere. It's dude, like, it's that amp, isn't it?
I gotta say, shout out Aguilar, and also shout out my buddy Chris Anderson. I was on a tour with a fancy esoteric head, and I'm not gonna name it, and it died. Yeah. And my buddy Chris Anderson, who was playing for Rachel Platten, had a tone hammer, and he was like, do you want to just use my head? And it was a little one, and I was like, you know, I had an 810, and I was like, sure, thank you, thinking that it was going to be this sort of diminutive experience because it was little, and I plugged it in, and it was like maybe better than it was. You know, I was like, oh my god, they sound fantastic. They really do. Yeah, they're really cool amps.
Like anybody, I'm thinking, well, yeah, like there's so many people I can remember watching. I was just watching a Tiny Desk last night. The bass player was using a tone hammer. Like, Gary Willis, what does he use? Tone hammer. I was watching Pino Palladino last week, playing at the Blue Note. What was he using? I think he was using a tone hammer. I think he was using a tone hammer. They're just everywhere.
They're awesome.
Yeah. Shout out to the Daves. Shout out to the Daves. Man. The
Avenius and Boonshaft?
The two Dave goats, that started Aguilar back in the day, that started that. Yeah. And they were really ahead of their time in terms of embracing the bass community and doing something freaking awesome. Give me a shout in the comments if you remember the Aguilar Loft and those videos that they uploaded into YouTube and how that blew everybody's minds back in the day. They were doing something truly special, and I think that they really deserve recognition for that, as well as obviously the people that have taken that now, and you know, the two Daves aren't involved in Aguilar anymore. They're doing their own thing. Dave's now at DR Strings. I'm not sure what Boonshaft is doing. Maybe he's just chilling. He's chilling, kicking back. Yeah.
I want to say too, the new Aguilar team is awesome. So shout out Pete, shout out Jordan, shout out Jeff. Those are the three guys that I've worked with at Aguilar, and they're so cool. And they're doing great stuff.
They were doing, they've been doing some cool videos on YouTube. They had this great Australian on recently. I'm gonna grab his name because he was awesome. I really enjoyed his playing. Aguilar amps.
I feel like I saw a little bit of that. Yeah, I can't remember his name. Yeah,
it was really cool.
As you're pulling that up too, let me just say this: I backline Aguilar stuff when I'm out with Eric Hutchinson. So anytime we go out and we play a festival or we play, you know, any run where we're going to use a backline, I always ask for either a 212, 410 Aguilar, and then either a tone hammer or AG. And AG doesn't get enough love. The tone hammer is warm and sort of ampy sounding, but the AG is beautiful. It's clean, but it isn't sterile. That's an amazing amp that I think people sort of sleep on.
Got it.
Like, the tone hammer seems to be the more popular one, but the AG is amazing too. Just a little cleaner, and maybe a little bit more like clarity in the bottom. It doesn't break up quite as soon, which is cool, which I like.
This is the guy, Lex Sadler.
Yeah. Can you give an example? So for like just give us some of the variety that you would go through. Let's say,
let's go.
Are we getting this? Connor? Connor's on it. Shout out to Connor.
I mean, open the tone nut. So, you're getting more clunky.
Yeah.
Roll the tone off. Even with the tone on, right? It's fuller sound.
Like
and it gets some of that, so I'm thinking.
Do you know what? I just love listening to people playing P basses. It's so honest. It's like
It is so honest.
It's honest.
You're right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Do you know what's happening to me right now too?
Oh, you're getting the salivating thing.
Yes.
Okay, so if people don't know, when Ian hears P basses, he actually starts to salivate.
It's true. It's so weird. Dude, I'm embarrassed. My face is red right now. It's so crazy.
Do you get it do you actually get it through? Do you get it through like jazz bass neck pickups? Same vibe or not? It's just P bass.
It isn't the same.
I'm getting some weird sort of like sympathetic kind of like more like I feel a bit
This is just TMI. But there is something, like you say, it's so honest. It's so like it's like steaky. I don't know if that's a thing.
I don't know what it is. Yeah.
It's like chewy, especially a P bass with flats. A P bass with old flats. When someone plays it, I actually start to salivate like I'm smelling a delicious meal and I haven't had one in a minute.
Yeah, yeah, exactly that. There's just something so beautiful about it. And listen, I'm not like I listen to other basses as well, and I listen to
salivate?
No, I don't salivate, but I just listen to so many basses. I'm just like a crazy music lover and consumer. I'm listening to music all of the time, bass all of the time, and there's very rarely a moment where I'm just like, oh, this is awesome. I'm always like that, right? But there's something different about when I hear a P bass with flats. I'm just like, oh, it just sounds so honest. Anyway, Lex Sadler, shout out to you. He's doing some great stuff with Antonio Sanchez, who's a beautiful musician and drummer, and Lex is playing some great bass lines, and he's also a mean synth bass player. That's an understatement, actually.
Sure.
He's incredible. So definitely worth checking out. Hey,
so cool.
Last thing on my list, let me just say it.
Let's go.
It's not an amp. And it's not a cab, but it kind of emulates it. It's this thing here. It's the Bass Rig 64 black panel. And I love this thing. I freaking love it. I use it all the time. I was playing through it last night. It made my evening glorious. I had my P bass. Oh yeah, you've got both. Okay, so there's the black panel. And what's the blue one called?
This is called the Super Vintage. So, the blue one is the Super Vintage.
Blue one's a Super Vintage.
Where this one is the 64 black panel. Essentially, 64 black panel is supposed to be like Bassman, Showman, Fender, black panel amplifiers, whereas the blue one is the SVT, right?
Yeah.
Super Vintage. This is the SVT late 60s, I believe. I could be wrong about that, but these are incredible.
They're both great pedals. You can DI out of them as well. And I love this pedal. I use it on the Tweed option, which you can see this little toggle here. I just have that on Tweed, and then obviously I've got this switch on the Fat, and it sounds freaking awesome. And it just creates this spongy feel. It's beautiful.
And like Rob Malarkey plays one of those as well. Remember we interviewed him in London, and he had one of those.
Yeah, he does
on his board.
I think he was using the Tweed set. This Tweed set.
Was he?
Yeah.
I love that Origin took a shot at making something other than an SVT. There's a ton of emulators out there that do the Ampeg thing, SVT B15, because those are the classic things. But I love that someone took a shot on the let's do a Fender one for bass. I think that's super cool.
I'm gonna pull up a guy who everybody should know more than they do, called Larry Lars Danielson. And in this clip, let me just get rid of this ad for a second. In this clip, he's playing through a Bassman, and I just think it sounds glorious.
Oh, Bassmans are so good.
They're so
Did you ever have
beautiful.
one? Did you ever own like an old one? Yeah.
No.
I had my time with them. I had 60s ones, and I had a Bassman 100 from the 70s. They're great.
Check it out, Frank McComb. Oh yeah, we've got the 60s beat, the 60s jazz bass as well. Oh, and I love the aesthetic of it as well. It's just lying on its side there.
Oh yeah, with the head on top.
Yeah.
Yep, that's great.
Love, love, love. Why'd you take so long to come to me? No, baby. And love, love, your love.
Dude can sing as well.
Man.
Tell me
Yeah.
what you hiding from me.
Oh, he's got the curly lead as well.
Attaboy.
This is worth going and watching, guys. If you haven't checked this video out before, I'm assuming like not many of you will have checked this out. It's just called Frank McComb, Love, Love, Love. But they give it some at the end. It's like...
Man, sounds great. Here's the thing, though. I mean, I don't look. I don't want to burst your bubble, but I don't see a microphone on that. Do you?
Oh.
Do you see a microphone on that?
God damn it! I don't see a microphone on it.
You have fallen prey, as so many of us do, to the look, to the aesthetic. Oh, maybe is there?
Right, yeah, DR, yeah.
But I thought I might have sung. Well,
Maybe.
I mean, you know.
But go check that out. It's beautiful. What
So
beautiful
cool.
performance. Great tone as well. Shout out to Larry Lars Danielson, who is
So
a
good.
killer bassist. Maybe my favorite tone. Maybe my favorite tone.
You should find if you haven't ever played through like a black panel 60 some, you know, it's like a 50-watt head.
Yeah.
You should if you see one.
Have you got one?
Snap it up. I used to. I ended up selling it. I was trying to do a thing where I was getting crunch out of it. That's not what it's for. But they are lovely, low to medium volume amps. They're so good. Yeah. Even the new Bassman 100 and Super Bassman that Fender makes, those sound so good.
Are they they're not tweed
amps.
though, are they? It needs
No,
to be
they're not
tweed,
tweed.
dude.
Oh,
You got them
yeah,
tweed,
right.
dude, because it like absorbs all of that like old nicotine. Like it's just been and like listen. I'm all for the good health. I'm all for the good health. But I smoked for 20 years, and you know what? I goddamn loved every minute of it. I could lick a tweed amp. And
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you need a hit, man, you just come up to it.
yeah, just lick the side of it. Yeah, I haven't smoked.
Oh my God.
God, I haven't smoked in maybe 10 years, but I miss it every day. But I'm going to choose life over nicotine.
Yeah. Choose life. Save your pennies to buy one of these ridiculously expensive bougie amps that we've been talking about.
What about cheaper? Have you got any cheaper ones on your list?
Okay, so the more budget-friendly options that I have on my list, I don't have photos of it, but I have played those Fender Rumbles, the Fender Rumble combos.
Yeah.
I think those sound pretty good, and they are really reasonable. They have sort of kind of like a bump in the low mid-range that can be a pro or a con, depending on how you look at it, but they have a sound, and I've really enjoyed even some of those small amps as like a practice amp. Those are great.
Yeah.
But I think my slightly more expensive, but still nowhere near some of the stuff we've been talking about, is actually the GK combos.
Oh, the GK, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess with the Fender Rumble stuff and the GK stuff, I'm sort of thinking about small practice amp vibes.
Yeah.
They make bigger stuff as well. They make, the Fender makes a really budget 410 in a Rumble. The GK stuff, like I say, is a little more expensive, but that stuff sounds excellent. It's very clean, fairly high power handling. I think that stuff is pretty cool, actually. And I haven't been a GK enthusiast previously. It was, I was kind of been like, I don't know. But I played one not too long ago and thought it was really good.
I know somebody, you know him as well, that hates GK. You know who I'm talking about. I'm not gonna mention his name, but I saw the post. He did another post the other day. If you are watching, if it's you and you are watching it, please know that every time I see one of your like anti-GK posts, it cracks me up. It cracks me up. He does not like GK. Does not like GK.
Yeah.
I've never talked to him about it, actually. I would love to. It's been a while since we got to hang. But I would love to ask him about like the where that hatred comes from.
I mean, I feel like it's out there. I feel like we could say it, but maybe we shouldn't.
No, I'm not going to say it just in case. I'm not going to say it just in case.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing with all this stuff too. Just try it. You know, you hear us talk about it. You see people have these crazy opinions, wild opinions about what's the best, what's the worst. There's no best and worst. If stuff makes it to market and it's been a brand for a long time, it's that way for a reason. So don't discount something because you've seen one person's opinion, or don't think something's the grail, the holy grail, because you saw someone, lauding after it. I think you got to go check this stuff out. But what about you, Divine? You have any budget thoughts?
Budget ones. I'm only going to mention what I've tried. So like the Little Mark, I've got it up here, Little Mark.
Oh, yeah.
This is the Little Mark 4. I think I had the Little Mark 1. Man, that amp that I had, I must have done 1,000 gigs through it, maybe more.
Awesome.
Maybe more, actually. I had it for about 5 years, and it was just absolutely bulletproof. I think it was about 500 quid. So they probably sell it for five. I've noticed that generally, whatever it is in pounds, sometimes is that in dollars. So maybe it's like $500 or something like that. I'm not sure. But it was just incredible. And I loved it. So when somebody comes to me and they're like, listen, then it's not super cheap. I think that the Rumble's cheaper. This will be what I would say like mid-level in terms of pricing. But for like 500 quid, and they do great cabs as well. And they're really light, super easy to maneuver around. I can remember getting my first Markbass cab and I was like, what on earth is this? It was just outrageous. I had like a little mark head and then a 2x10 cab. It was awesome. And then also we should shout out to like there's all of these other bass manufacturers, like bass amp manufacturers. Vanderklay back there. By the way, I've got one of the Bullhead 1K. I think 5K. I've got the 0.5. I've got the 500 watt Bullhead there. I've got a beautiful Vanderklay. Shout out to Mark Vanderklay. They make great ones. I've played EBSs in the past. They're great. And there's a load of amps as well that I'd love to try and just haven't got my hands on. So if you feel that we should have added, more into this video, well, first of all, we probably have gone way over time, but also I just haven't tried some of the other stuff either. So
same. Yeah.
It's just, this list for me was just the stuff that got my interest in 2024.
Yeah, we're talking about what we know here, people. We can safely recommend all this stuff to you because we have experience with it. Yeah,
I haven't done the head from Jad Freer. Obviously, I haven't tried that, but I obviously, you have tried the capo. Have you tried that amp, by the way?
The Seisma, the smaller one.
Yeah, but you haven't done the big one.
But I haven't been in the same room with the big one. I would love to.
To wrap this up, dude, one piece of gear, amp, cab, preamp.
It has to be an amp cab? Okay.
Amp, cab, or preamp. You can only get one, and you're going to get it some point in 2025. What's it going to be?
I'm going to get it sometime in 2025.
Yeah. What's it going to be?
I hope that Barefaced makes this is, I don't know that they will, but I want them to make a gorgeous amplifier that goes along with those incredible cabs. I want that to exist. That's what I want to get in 2025. A beautiful, simple, elegant, high power, just 3D sounding magical box of metal and wires that's going to make my freaking dreams come true, dude.
Yeah. I've got no clue what mine is. I'm just, as you were, I was like, oh crap, I haven't got one. The Seisma from Jad Freer, that could be it, maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe. Or maybe the old tube from Jad Freer. That looks great. Man. The new amp from Trickfish looks great. I'm more sort of like nerdy at the minute about amps and preamps than cabs because I'm so happy with this freaking Bareface.
Yes, right.
I don't feel like I've got anything anywhere else to go after that, and they're really light as well, so that's beautiful.
They are. I felt like I didn't say this, but yeah, they're like the one that I have, that big wide. It's called the Big 24. Is 52 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
Which is actually very manageable for a big old cab.
Yeah. And they've got wheels on and stuff like that. Anyway, dude, let's call it. People of the interwebs, people of the YouTubes, I want you to join in. What's your 2024 pick right now? Like, what's your 2024 pick? If you can think of just one piece of gear that's been, I know you keep going back and looking at it online. Mm-hmm. Do you know when you wake up too early in the morning? It's like 5:36. And I shouldn't go on my phone. I know it's a bad idea, but I'm just gonna go. Let's take a peek. What is that piece of gear? Or maybe when you have like one of them like midnight peas that like
this is some old guy stuff now, dude. You're talking about waking up at 5, having the midnight pee.
I've got like, midnight, like the old 3 o'clock pee. You're 46, you're a dude.
Yeah, I know it well.
Hey, Lisa's 45 this year. She's having some midnight peas as well. So man.
Hey, I'm still 45 for 9 more days, Divine.
Outrageous. Have you started having the midnight peas yet? Is it more like
of course. Well, it's going to happen in 9 days. I know it.
9 days. It'll come, dude. It's that's the downfall of you. Anyway, dudes, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure as always. Take it easy. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care, everybody.